Friendship is a cornerstone for sustainability, for sustainable practice. And we're going to do that in part by exploring the work at Owenwood Farm and Neighbor Space. I need to start out with a story, though. It wasn't many years ago that my family and I were in a rough financial situation. My wife and I had two young kids, and we just weren't bringing in enough money to meet all of our needs. And so we started waiting in food lines and other types of lines for various services. And I remember one time in particular, we went to, happened to have been in a church. I went to a church where they're handing out food. And I remember that experience so distinctly because I remember from the moment we walked in to the moment we left, we were not treated like human beings and we didn't feel like human beings. Sure, at the end of the day, we left and we had the food that we needed to feed ourselves and our children, but we also left with part of our dignity having been stripped from us. And so I tell this story in part to introduce this idea of why I think friendship is so important for sustainable practices, for meeting these 17 sustainability goals that the UN has, because we can do these kinds of things in a way in which we might meet physical needs, but might also strip dignity from folks or cause isolation and the like. And so friendship is a good starting point for us to think about how we might more fully think of these sustainability goals. Owenwood is Owenwood Farm and Neighbor Space. We're in Far East Dallas, not far from the Mesquite line, in what was a formerly derelict church building. We have been fortunate to get a variety of grants and the like. And we have a number of partners who pay rent and the like to be able to start fixing the building up for a variety of uses. And you can see just at the bottom picture, this was taken at the start of COVID. And you can see here where the farm was just getting going. But in future pictures here in a minute, you can see where more will be growing. And this line you see here is our first drive-through diaper distribution that we did when COVID hit. We had to move to a drive-through model for that, which we'll talk about in a minute. We work on a shared and community space model, which goes back to this idea of friendship, saying that none of us can do this if we're siloed. But if you're good at helping, provide food. So we work with the North Texas Food Bank. Then you do that. If you're good at providing education, so one of our partners, Aspire, does that. If you're, and we share space. So then we also end up not only being, we could just be landlords, right, and just rent space to random groups that are doing good things, but instead trying to be having communication, to have meals together, to have partnership meetings, and talk about how it is that we might collaborate, how the group that does this might work with the group that does that, or how one group might share the information about their events with the other group. And so this shared space model means that sometimes there's conflict because sometimes two groups need to use a space, or somebody left it messy, and so this really helps us delve deeper into a relationship and build a community internally, so that as we reach out to folks and as we're working on some of our goals, which are things like no poverty and hunger, we're working on food issues. We work with the elementary school that you can't quite see off the edge of the screen there, Connor Elementary School, on a variety of things for their education. And so we also try to talk about how we don't work on stewardship, but instead generosity, and we might also throw hospitality in there, because a stewardship model tends to be too ownership based, that I will decide, we will decide what happens to this or that. And certainly we do. But instead, the goal is to try to be as generous as possible and sort of bring in the community and hear their wisdom and to hear, where should the money go? Where should the resources go? What should the people be doing? How do you want to participate? And so we avoid this stewardship language, instead talk about things like generosity and hospitality. And in fact, one of the things that we do that I think is incredibly important is that we've moved away from using language like client. And I know in some environments that might be most appropriate language, but we use neighbor, friend, guest, things like that. And then a few quotes from our website that we're trying to not only get to the needs of our community, but the aspirations, right? So people don't just want to have food in their stomachs and have a decent place to live. People have goals and aspirations in life. And this is why the friendship piece is so important, because we can meet lots of needs, give to charity or even go do drop off events or whatever. And you meet these needs, and yet people still have goals and aspirations. And we want to hear those goals. And we also want to hear their fears, their concerns, so that we can participate in helping with that, and them helping us as well with our needs and our aspirations. And again, being known, and we want all of our neighbors to use their gifts. And I'll talk about that in just a sec. And then I say often that we operate on an ethic of inefficiency, which is language I took from a guy who runs an amazing organization in Ohio, and Keith Wasserman is his name. But we try to work on this ethic of inefficiency, which means that we recognize friendship, community, these kinds of things take time. It takes time to get to know what it is people really need and want. And sure, there are some needs we can meet immediately. We can provide food. We provide literally something like 13,000+ pounds of food a month, plus what's coming out of the farm and the community garden. We're working on education. We can do these things, but in order to go deeper, to let folks recognize their own moral agency and dignity, so that they can go and reach for these dreams and these aspirations. So it's not just about survival, but again, it's about flourishing, and that takes time. Friendships take time to form, because we need to listen with curiosity and empathy. And our work's fundamentally grounded in relationships with the 6 or so other organizations housed there, as well as the dozen plus other partners that we work with on a regular basis, plus community members of a variety of kinds. We're inviting everyone to be a part of this work. So I want to talk to you just briefly about some of our partners. This is the group that I happen to run. So from here on out, it's mostly just pictures, which I'm sure won't bother anybody too much, but this is just some representative stuff. Our car line, you can see, which now wraps around a few times and extends all the way down the road several blocks. On our last Saturday, we served about 200 families, 150 to 200 families a month, with between about 13 and 20,000 diapers, wipes, rash creams, pull-ups. We do adult diapers, and then a variety of feminine hygiene products, and then we do a variety of other hygiene products and goods as well as they're donated. And so with this group, one of our key things, and you can see a little representation here in this picture, but you can see um, all over, there's a variety of diversity in age, in race, in language. And our goal from the beginning was not simply to provide diapers and hygiene products. Yes, we wanted to do that. Yes, it's a huge need. And in fact, a recent Yale study came out that said mothers are more likely to face postpartum depression when they lack access to diapers than when they lack access to adequate food. This is a really important issue with health and well-being. If folks don't have diapers, they can't go to daycare, even if daycare is subsidized. So this is one thing that can help with a chain of other things. And then one of the things that we do at our distributions that I think's really been key is that we always have other organizations present. And those organizations are either providing their services. So we've had COVID clinics. In one of the pictures I think you might see later, we had the Parkland Hospital's mammogram truck come out. So we're always trying to do that. But we also have partners that go out and just hand out their information. So Mission East Dallas will come out and say, here's information about our clinic, or folks will come out and they'll sign folks up for government benefits, or folks will come out and provide information about infant health care, or there's a group that does auto loans that's specifically aimed at helping folks trying to get to jobs and the like. And so our goal in this is that it would be sort of a one-stop shop where folks could get as many goods and services as possible. But also we work really hard, even in this drive-through mode, to continue those friendships. And that hospitality. So we do things like these boxes right here were just little boxes that a group made for us that were filled with toys and little goodies that we went and handed out car to car, so that as kids are waiting in that line, they had something to do. Or we provide coloring sheets and crayons for the kids. We work, thankfully, a local group of McDonald's provides us with 600 sausage biscuits, and so we can hand those out. And all kinds of things to make people feel welcome. And then when we were inside and when we move inside again, that will only be cranked up to the next level, where folks will be able to come in and get hopefully tons and tons of goods and services in one place, all while continuing to build these friendships and community. And I'll just mention two things that have happened recently. Well, three. So one, we had a lady who was coming in. She only spoke Spanish. She was talking to one of our key volunteers who only speaks English. And they got to realize that they had a shared affinity for cats. And so that guest came and brought one of our volunteers this cat blanket. And that volunteer now brings that blanket to church and wears it in Sunday school class, because the Sunday school room's always cold. And so you see how there's the mutuality. We had a car pull up recently, one of our regular guests, and they had brought a couple cases of water. And they said, hey, can you please hand these out to all your volunteers? And I could go on and on with stories, and I'll tell one to close out at the very end. But that's Diapers Etc. We do the last Saturday of the month, every month except for December, because we'll be doing a Christmas toy thing as well. So if you're interested in that, feel free to let me know. Last Saturday of the month, we do about 9 to 11 in the morning. Then we have Grow North Texas. They run our farm, so you can see here how we're starting, and now this picture was taken a little while back, but you can start to see stuff growing. And so a variety of volunteers from our local elementary school up through college students to veterans come and work on the farm. And the goal is real soon that we will have a farm stand on the property. And so we will be providing sustainable, organic, healthy food. And on top of that, we're providing food knowledge. So the farm regularly provides classes on how to grow things, how to compost. We'll be doing more composting soon. We're planning some events where we'll be working with the farm, and here's that collaboration thing again with the farm and hopefully Baylor Scott and White's nutrition division, and we'll start doing food classes, so preparation classes to help people not only get healthy food in their hands, but know how to get it in their bodies, because food knowledge is something that has been greatly lost in urban areas. So I want to suggest that if we're going to have sustainability, then sustainability is going to mean that urban people, if we're going to have sustainable cities, is that we're going to have to remember that we are fundamentally rural, that the things that we depend on for everyday life are almost always from rural areas. And so we need to start bringing back rural practices like growing and providing and cooking food into urban areas is just one example. And then we also have Hope Supply Company, who works with us. And Hope Supply Company has something like 85 partners around DFW. They provide diapers in bulk to all these different partners. And they also provide, you can see here, Christmas toys. So they help us significantly. One of the local radio stations does a Stuff-A-Bus event, and those toys come to us, and then we provide them to the families, the students of Conner Elementary School. And so Hope Supply Company works with their 85 partners, providing diapers, wipes, clothes at Owenwood at our location. They have a store, essentially. It's a free store, but any of their partner agencies can come there and pick out clothes, and all of their clothes are donated new clothes that come from good quality brands. And so folks come from like battered women's shelters, or folks come from other social services agencies, but we're one of their few diaper pantries, diapers, etc. So we get large quantities of diapers from them. They provide about 80%. And you can see on the side of their van just some of the other things. Basically, you can see up here, driving change for homeless children. They focus on helping homeless kids and what we would call at risk of being homeless, kids who are at risk of being homeless. So that's Hope Supply. Then we also have Aspire, who provides a variety of educational programming. They do ESL, they do GED. People can come and take the classes, and people can come there and take the tests. They have computer labs. You can see that they have study spaces. Now they have programming for kids. So when their parents are coming in for testing or for something else, they have programming for kids. And that's something that we've also tried to do, is make our community a place where kids can be a part of as much as possible. Because we're going to talk about sustainability, raising up the next generation in a place where there's shared compassion and community, and teaching them and working with them and having like my kids there every diaper distribution and a whole bunch of other times during the month. To see that work is sustaining a new generation who can help meet these goals. They're learning things like simplicity. They're learning how to be creative, how to work across, gender lines and race lines and age lines and all the lines that we draw that make a sustainable world difficult. One of the things that Aspire does that I love that's real simple, they provide a one-day forklift training, and folks can go to that. And with that one-day training, folks can be certified to drive a forklift, and I think it can pay up to $23 an hour. And so they're helping to quickly get people, and this goes back to what I was talking about with Rustin, to quickly get people into jobs that pay well. And then that person has options to think about, okay, do I want to keep being a forklift driver? Maybe. If that's what they want to keep doing, then great. They're there and they can. But now they have maybe some money that they can start looking towards other dreams and aspirations they might have and what it might take to get there. We work with White Rock Community Church. They use our space for worship services, but they've for decades have been reaching out to the HIV and AIDS community. So folks with HIV and AIDS can come into their pantry and they can get cleaning supplies, hygiene stuff, toilet paper, and all of that. But one of the big things that's super important to their ministry, which by the way is called Friends. I love that they named it that however many years ago, but they always provide these meals. And so when, it's non-COVID time, they do that inside, and there's lots of fellowship, and it's a real good way for folks who are often lonely to find community. And for now, they've been trying to do some stuff outside, as you can see, as well as provide to-go meals. And so relationship is at the center, friendship is at the center of what they do as well, knowing that folks, especially folks that like with HIV and AIDS that have been stigmatized and marginalized, that they need safe community, that they need friendships as much as they need food and medication and jobs and all of these other sorts of things. But through friends, they can get connected. What's great about this shared space ministry or model is that if someone comes into me or one of these other groups says, I'm looking for help with X, we can often point them to one of our partners there, and they say, oh, we can provide that, or we can connect you with the people who can provide that. And then finally, we have Artillery, and as you can see, they do all kinds of artist stuff, all kinds of performance stuff, but they also do visual arts, painting, sculpture, and the like, and they do classes and all in the building. So we believe also that it's important in this thinking about sustainability, the role the arts have to play in teaching us the lessons that we need to learn about things like responsible consumption and production, about reduced inequality. If you see a great performance that brings out to you inequalities faced by people of color, by poor folks, by all kinds of different folks, the hate that's been pointed towards Asian Americans and Asian folks. I actually lived, nobody ever heard of it before, but I actually used to live in Wuhan, China. So, I'm so glad that there's people doing this kind of work to show a variety of things that help open people's minds through artistic expression in our work for justice and sustainability. And then within Owenwood itself, as its own entity, its own organization, we do a number of other things. We provide laundry detergent. This was important. This came out of a conversation with a bunch of homeless and formerly homeless friends, and they said one of the big needs that we have that no one is meeting. I think, the laundry detergent is all biodegradable, all safe, and I can't think of all the words here. Allergy doesn't cause allergies, things like that. So we actually have a group now. There's a group of intellectually disabled high school students that now we actually take all the ingredients to, and they mix it up for us as a part of their programming. And I haven't been over there yet, but I've heard that they really love doing that work. And then we get it and, of course, get to provide it to the neighborhood. And then it's also good for the environment. And we're working on getting our containers back each time. So charging people a quarter or something like that. And then, getting that back so that we can also reduce the plastic that's out there. We do the community garden, which is separate from the farm. And that's soon to be built out to about twice or more the current size. And so if you're looking for a place to build community, to be a part of stuff during COVID and be outside and safe and distanced, this is great work. It provides food, but it also, it's really the community and the community garden part is really key. And then we do things like provide coats for the neighborhood, provide Christmas toys, and we try to do these things the best way we can to help dignify folks. Because one thing I found, if folks are trying to ascend the economic ladder and they constantly meet with demoralizing situations, then that becomes even more difficult. But if they're met with hospitality and dignity and given things like choice and given things like opportunities to serve, then they are more able to get out of poverty, to get education and the like, because they're provided for. And then some of our future stuff that we're currently working on, either grants for or they're in the process. We're working on solar and wind power. We've got that farm out there. It'd be great to have some turbines out there for that. We're looking at some grants for some solar panels. We have a huge roof, and again, we've got field space, so we're looking to see how much of our energy can be provided by that rather than fossil fuels from the power grid. As my friend likes to say, we're eventually going to run out of dinosaur juice, so we've got to find other ways to power things. We're doing composting. Soon there'll be honeybees on the property, which of course will help the garden grow, but also help our neighbors' flower beds and the like grow. And honeybees are not aggressive. We're bringing in, not aggressive bees, and we're looking at things like a carbon offset. So we know that putting 15,000 diapers in a landfill every month is quite a problem. But we also know there's good reasons why cloth diapers don't work for the majority of our guests. And so we're looking at what we can do both personally, or as organizationally, to offset some of that pollution that we're participating in causing. We're also working on an alternative lending program that's going to be very relationally based. And so, for instance, a lot of the board, the people making the decisions about the lending, will be community members, and they will be able to speak directly to, I know that person, I know their character, they're trustworthy, we can give them a loan, or they're not trustworthy, or whatnot. And so that'll be all based on these friendships as well. But that lending will help break people out of that poverty cycle with payday lenders and the like, as well as emergency shelters. We have laundry and shower facilities, and then one of our maximizing property use. So we don't want a building in a space that isn't being used as much as possible, especially as COVID does whatever COVID does. Eventually, we hope to have that space filled, and we really want to look like our neighborhood. And this is where I close. So these sustainability goals: poverty, hunger, health and well-being, education, gender equality, all of these things. You keep going down that list, they all require friendships. I need friendships with people of different genders so I can hear about their experiences and their difficulties. And I need friendships with people in poverty so I can hear about what it is that is actually going to help them get out of poverty, what they want, what they need. I need to work with my community for my own health and well-being. If my mental health is going to be good, then that's going to be, it's going to be necessary that I have these relationships. So I'll close with the story about these three ladies in this picture. So this is Janice and Erica right here, both started as guests of ours early on. We just had our 4th anniversary at Diapers, etc. And now Janice is one of our key leaders. She brings in other young women and mentors them during the month while she packages diapers and all of that. She is the lady in charge of that area, and we're working on trying to make her a key face of the organization, and we're stepping back so that more of our board, our leadership team or whatever, will look like our neighborhood. And then Erica is a Spanish speaker, and she has just taken over the outside part where we have to have a lot of communication, and she is just jumping in it. And then Janice has brought her sister along now, who has started helping out. But these three women started as guests because they needed diapers for their family. And now they're leading in this work, in this diaper work. And because of that, we've learned how to do it better. And if this community takes ownership, then this work becomes sustainable. So if we want to talk about sustainability, then we've got to talk about the way that we build friendships, and that the way those provide the basis, the foundation for any work that we do towards sustainable life and practice together. And I'll leave it at that, even though I could go on.
Thank you, Dr. Barringer. What a fabulous presentation. We really appreciate you sharing with us about the friendships you've been building in East Dallas and the partnerships so that you can support the East Dallas community. Phenomenal work you're doing there, and we really appreciate it. I am not seeing any questions right now. But Dr. Barringer, how can people get in touch with you if they have questions, if they want to volunteer at Owenwood? How can they?
I just put in the chat my email address, justin@owenwood.org. So anybody can email me there if you got questions about any of this, or if you want to come tour Owenwood, whatever. I'm happy to chat.
Thank you so much. Thank